Hello guys, welcome back to John's Workshop. This is episode 21 and this episode is going to be all about building the mill, the Cormak mill, back together again. You join me in the workshop. I've just built the engine hoist and I've done a bit of a shuffle round and just a general sling up, and I'll show you that in a minute, of the mill to try and get it off the pallet. I must admit I'm incredibly apprehensive about this. I kind of wish it was a live stream so that you guys could be shouting, no, don't do it, it's all going to go wrong. But unfortunately I need a few more subscribers before I can get into that game. So I'm here on my own. It's pouring me rain, so apologies for the background noise. So we've got the engine hoist built. You can see it there, and I've put some slings around the mill. So I'll just move you and show you that. And there you can see I've got it slinged, ready to lift. What I did do was I tried undoing the 4 bolts at the back here that hold the column onto the base. And I just did a very light lift just to see how it would go, but unfortunately the centre of gravity is all completely in the wrong place. So lifting it like that is just not going to be a thing. So I need to lift all of it, which is what's filling me with apprehension. The issue that I've got that I didn't really sort of predict really when I bought the engine hoist was I kind of thought there'd be a bit more overhang. I've never used one of these engine hoists before, so I thought there'd be a bit more overhang on the main beam, which would allow me to get right over the pallet, but unfortunately the legs are as long as the beam is, which really is common sense. They're bound to be, otherwise you'd have a sort of a tipping motion. So what I've had to do is drag the machine to the corner of the pallet, turn it round, and that took some doing on my own, to be fair. But we've got it in position at the corner of the pallet. We've got it slinged around the back of the head unit, and I put another sling on kind of around the front, but I don't really think that's doing anything, if I'm honest. It's certainly not taking any weight. It's just there to try and stop it tipping. Yeah, I'm incredibly apprehensive about this. I'm right on the extreme of the beam, so I've got it set to the furthest out point. You'll see there, there's four positions. So you've got 250 kilograms, which is what it's set at, then you've got 500, then you've got 750, and then a ton with it fully retracted. So yeah, I'm incredibly apprehensive. So I'm trying to plan the lifts and plan what order I'm going to do this in. So I think I'm going to try and just lift it just off the pallet, and then lift the pallets up, sort of up to the wall, and then slide them out the way this way. And then pretty much I'm going to get a couple of bits of wood and just drop the mill straight back down on the wood at that point, and then take a bit of a breather and think about the next lift that I'm going to do. So that's the plan for now. And then I think what I shall do then is move the base into the final position where it needs to go. I'm then probably going to move the beam back in by 1 to the half-ton position, which would make me feel a bit more comfortable. I'm still concerned about the actual machine itself and whether it's going to take its own weight basically during the lift, but I don't really have any options. There's no lifting eyes, there's nowhere else to get hold of the thing, so it's this or nothing really. So that's the plan, and then once I've got the base in position, the next thing then will be to gradually lift this up bit by bit, and I think I'm just going to bring a load of breeze blocks in that are all going to be wringing wet through with the rain, but never mind. So I'm going to bring a load of breeze blocks in, and I'm going to lift the thing up by the thickness of a breeze block, and then I'm going to slide breeze blocks underneath each time, so that I'm only ever the thickness of a breeze block away from sort of, if anything goes wrong, I can just drop it quickly down that sort of 3 inches and drop it back onto the breeze blocks. And I'll keep doing that bit by bit until we get it to the height of the base unit, and then that's the bit that where I'm going to need to take a deep breath and, you know, just go for it, and move the whole thing over the base and drop it down. So so that's the kind of the plan. I have got no idea how this is going to go, if I'm honest. It could all go very well and no issues, or it could all go extremely badly, and I don't think there's any middle ground. So it's one of those two. So that's kind of where we're going to end up tonight. So I'm just going to have a bit of a tidy up and make sure everything's out of my way before I start, so that I'm not tripping over stuff. You know, try and make it as safe as I can, and then I'll bring you back when we're going to test the whole lifting arrangement out, as well as my nerves. Okay, so I'll bring you back in a bit. Okay guys, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to lift that off the pallet, I think, and rather than try and move the pallets out from under it, I'm going to just move the whole thing backwards. So I'm going to back it off slightly that way towards the back, and then what I shall do, I've laid 2 bits of wood out down here that have been cut almost at a wedge shape, so they'll fit between, well, they'll fit under the legs, but they won't interfere with the wheels of the engine hoist. And I've laid those out at the 18-inch centres, which is about the centres of the, when you look at the base, it's relieved in the middle, but it's full height at the front and the back. So I've laid those 2 bits of wood out at the right sort of pitch to sit the mill on. So that's kind of the plan. So I'll bring you back in a minute when we're about to go and do that. Right, here we go then guys, it's now or never. So this is either going to go well or badly, so I'll bring you along on that journey. Let's see what happens. Yeah, it's gone badly. Not happy with that. We'll just reposition and try again. Right, we'll have another go. The problem there was the pallet right at the back of the shop that's got the table on, and the Y-axis sort of saddle was in the way. So we'll give it another shot and see what happens this time. I'm just wondering if I spin this round now, so that the weight is better positioned. Well, it doesn't really make any difference, it's in the centre of rotation anyway. Right, okay, let's see what happens. These wheels on this thing aren't the best. A bit more room would help. Right, let's get these pallets out of the way. I think what we're going to do is move the wood into the right position rather than move the mill into the right position, because it's not sliding particularly well on this floor. So we'll try that. It doesn't look too bad. And relax. Well, there we go. That's the first bit of the move done. I don't know how much of that you saw. Yeah, you should have seen most of it. Right, okay. Good. So that's got the first bit done. Yeah, that engine hoist just doesn't move very well on this floor. The wheels are just being steel, they don't roll very well. I think what I'll do before I do anything else is just have a good sweep up and make sure there's nothing on the floor that's going to inhibit the wheels moving anymore. But we're in a position now where I can move the base now, and we'll get the base roughly in position, and then I'll start dragging breeze blocks in here. And I mean, the good news is it's lifted it and there's been no creaking or groaning or you know, nothing cracking in the machine itself, so I think we're going to be okay. What I did notice was, you know, that must be right on the limit. I think that's probably 250 plus, if I'm honest, because I noticed that the back end of the lift it wasn't lifting off, but when I started trying to push the whole thing forward, I could feel the back wheels kind of just moving slightly off the ground. So I do need to put the ram in by one position, I think, before we do anything else, and I'll feel a bit more comfortable at that point. So we'll get the base moved and we'll start planning the next lot of lifts. Not really sure what happened there. Camera switched off for no apparent reason. So anyway, as I was saying, I think it's in the right spot now where it needs to go. So the next job now is get some breeze blocks in here, stacked at the side, ready. I'm going to move the beam back to the 500 kilogram mark and re-sling the mill main unit, and then we'll have a deep breath. I'm going to go in and get a bit of tea and have a good think about what I'm about to do, and then we'll come back out and we'll make a start at the main lift. Hopefully, fingers crossed, everything's going to go well. So I'll bring you back when we get to that point. Right guys, what we're going to do now is just give this a good wipe, make sure there's no swarf or nothing that can sit between this and the mill that would cause it to not be sturdy and sitting completely flat down to the surface. go. And then the next job is to do the same thing on the underside of the mill. So what I'm going to do there is I'm going to just jack it up, flip those two bits of wood round and stick them back underneath height waist wise, just in case anything happens, and then we'll give that a quick wipe underneath just to make sure there's nothing under there as well. It's a little bit precarious, but the crane's still got hold of it, and the timber's under there just in case. It's literally just those four corners that sit down. Right, we're just going to drop that down now, fully, because I want to move the boom back by one hole. Span it. So I'm just going to adjust the boom now. I'll just put you up so you can see what I'm up to. You'll see there's four positions: 1000 kilograms, 750, 500, 250. So it's currently in the 250 position. I'm going to move it back to the 500 position, which should bring the weight more central about the engine crane, and just I'll feel a bit more comfortable with that, I think. So I'll just do that now. Okay, there we go. We'll just then take the slack up. In a new position. Okay. This is horrible. It just does not want to move around on the floor. Anyway, there we are. We've got it just in front of the mill base there now. So I guess this is it. It's now or never. We'll jack it up, and I'm really not looking forward to the final push forward, to be honest. The way this thing's working, it's not doesn't turn very well. But anyway, what I'm going to do is straighten the casters out at the back so that everything's pointing, in the direction of travel that I want to go. So I'm just going to do that now, and then we should be okay. The front ones aren't bad. It's the back ones really. So that one at the back's there, okay. There we go, guys. Let's do this. that caster facing the right way. Right. There we go then. That wasn't what I was hoping was going to happen. Excuse my language. I don't mind telling you, I'm sweating a bit, guys. It's a bit of a revolting development. Too happy with that. Oh, it's over. Well, it's it's on. I think I'm just going to have a breather. I'll bring you back in a minute. Alright guys, if anybody else is ever doing one of these, don't make the mistake I've just made. What I didn't do, and it's the only two holes that I've not had a tap for, 4 holes sorry, that I've not had a tap through, I didn't tap through the captive nut holes that are in the base, and I've had a right game. The stud wouldn't go in, I couldn't screw the studding in, and I didn't know whether it was alignment, because you've got to align all three things. Anyway, I messed around and eventually figured out it was the fact that the threads inside the captive nuts were just, well, looked like everything else on the mill, full of crap and everything else. So I had two choices at that point. I either lifted the whole thing back off again and tacked them out, or I tried to tack them out from underneath, which is what I finished up doing. And how I did that was just with an M12 tap, sort of stuck into a socket quite hard with a hammer so that it wouldn't slip, and with a ratchet. And I basically tapped the holes out from the underside, and as soon as I'd done that, the threads went in, no bother at all. So that's all four studs in, washers and bolts on, so that's now fixed to the base quite firmly. What I've still to do obviously is screw the base to the floor. I'm not going to do that just yet, because I just want to make sure. I think I'm going to do the rest of the mill build first, which should be okay. It's reasonably sturdy as it is, just in case I've got a collision somewhere or it's not quite in the right position. So I'm going to leave that for now. It's certainly not going anywhere. So that's the first mistake I made. The second mistake I made, and if anybody else lives in Scotland who does this and is used to midges, don't do what I did, which is leave the garage door wide open and all the lights on at 10 o'clock at night after it's been raining all day. This place is absolutely full of midges, and I'm just getting bitten to death while I'm trying to do it, which has made the whole thing twice as frustrating as it really needed to be. Anyway, all that said and done, we're good to go. So what I'm going to do now is take the engine hoist off, take the slings off, get the engine hoist out of the way, and then stand back and have a look at it, take a deep breath, and I think we'll be calling it a day for tonight, and I'll get back in tomorrow, and then we'll clean everything properly right down, and then start with the reassembly of all of the bits and pieces. So I'll just film me taking the engine hoist out of the way, and then I'll probably just reposition the camera in front of the mill looking at it so that you can see it on its stand, fully assembled. So we'll just move some of the carnage out of the way so that we can move the engine hoist. I'm really pleased I got these guys, because the whole lift's been a bit dodgy anyway. It was one less thing for me to worry about. These are rated at 1 ton each, and they're well over capacity really in terms of what the weight that I'm lifting. But yeah, that would have been much more difficult without those. So for what they cost, they're not that expensive. I've always got them now, and it's made the job a lot easier. So we'll just pop the slings back up, and the crane, and now we'll move this engine hoist out. Moves a lot easier without that weight on it. Right, I'll just shift the camera, I'll do it without stopping it. So, excuse the wibbly wobbly. I'll position it at the back. And again, this camera unfortunately doesn't give me the scope to get it all in. I'm right up against the far wall here, but so there we are. So that's the mill on the base, ready for a good clean down now, and the rest of the assembly. So I think the first thing I'm going to do is wind the head right up to the top, just to give myself maximum room underneath for when I start doing the reassembly, but you don't need to see that, so I'll wind that up now, and then I think I'm going to call it a day for tonight. That's been a 3 or 4 hours, shall we call it, intense work. So I'm pleased, I'm really pleased it's gone up without any incident, and it's now starting to look like a mill, so I'm pleased we're making progress with it. Okay, I'll bring you back tomorrow when we're doing a bit more.